Hello, my name is Emma Cieslik. I'm excited to be presenting with you today my research about investigating Jewish identity and the incidence of anti-Semitism in Muncie and small-town Indiana. Thank you so much for tuning into my presentation, and I look forward to sharing my research with you. Hello, my name is Emma Cieslik, and I am an undergraduate student at Ball State University investigating Jewish identity and the incidence of anti-Semitism in Muncie and small-town Indiana. Thank you for joining me today for my presentation. Jews have lived in Muncie before the city was incorporated in 1865. Muncie is a medium-sized city with an estimated population of about 68,500 people, situated in east-central Indiana. Best known for its role as Middletown in sociologist Robert and Helen Lynn's study of small-town America, Muncie has a long history of Judaism, starting with German and Central European immigrants that settled in the area in the late 19th and 20th centuries. Sadly, the Jewish population was largely ignored in the Lynn studies, described as a city where foreign-born form only an infinitesimal part of the population. The Lynns failed to comment on the thriving Jewish population currently centered at Temple Bethel, a Reform synagogue in downtown Muncie, and on Ball State's campus with the Jewish student organization Hillel, as well as the unique challenges for Jewish populations living in small towns. What was the goal of this project? Few anthropological studies have focused on Jews in small communities in the Midwest, and currently none exist for small towns in Indiana. Most scholarship relates to Muncie's Jewish population has focused on salvaging the stories, customs, and ways of life in Muncie because they are disappearing, including the Middletown Jewish Oral History Project 1 and 2. My hope by conducting an anthropological study was to fill this gap in scholarship by investigating Jewish identity and anti-Semitism in small-town Indiana, to ask the living to speak for themselves and their past through participant observation and interviews, and to apply anthropological theory to the lived experiences of American Jews. What did I do for this project? For this study, I conducted 12 ethnographic interviews with Jewish individuals in Muncie, starting at Temple Bethel. Synagogues are often used as the starting points for ethnographies on Jewish identity construction, and I branched out from there to Ball State's Hillel chapter. The interviews ranged from 30 minutes to 60 minutes and covered topics related to the Jewish family, Jewish identity in Muncie, including physical and emotional threats, Jewish jokes and harassment, and finally, modern political leadership. I transcribed all 12 interviews and hand-coded them for elements related to Jewish identity and anti-Semitism, including the dominance of Christianity, and then created a semantic map for themes of Jewish identity and anti-Semitism in Muncie found in the interviews. For this study, I was really interested in three main questions. During the interviews, what are the most frequent topics discussed related to Jewish identity in Muncie? What are the triumphs and challenges that Jewish individuals encounter in small-town Indiana? How has living in small-town Indiana in a predominantly Christian town affected informants' religious identity? Are most people in Muncie informed about what Judaism is? How does living in Muncie compare with interviewees' previous experiences in smaller or larger communities related to resources, especially considering kosher foods? Before starting the study, I conducted a literature review in order to determine which questions to ask. This study fits into literature related to Jewish identity, anti-Semitism, and Midwest studies. Jewish identity in the small-town context is closely related to community size, belonging, and place, as well as assimilation in the wider community. This study therefore wanted to focus on the emic rather than the etic perspective, looking at how Jewishness refers to national pride, racial belonging, and diet, even beyond religion, by taking an insider approach through interviewing and participant observation. While Hartman and Sheshkin found that the number of Jewish households and the size of Jewish communities does not make a difference in regard to Jewish identity, Alper and Olson found that Jews are more likely to feel like outsiders in American life when they live in areas with smaller Jewish populations, just like the case in Muncie. Place is very significant in personal identity, and Chiswick found that the sense of group belonging from families, synagogues, and communities is deeply embedded in Jewish ritual, and that identity is closely tied to Jewish group socialization. They're called microcontexts, and they refer to factors such as family, friends, and schoolmates that impact religiosity and shape how religion persists through people's lives. These microcontexts can also contribute to assimilation in the larger community, especially because although Heilman notes that some tension between the Jewish community and the wider community promotes identity, instances such as Chrismukkah, the union of Jewish Hanukkah and Christian Christmas, as well as intermarriage between Jewish and Christian parents, which I'll mention in a second, can potentially weaken that tension and promote greater assimilation into American society. So what did we find throughout our interviews? It was significant because, although many studies show that non-Jews are more accepting towards Jews than any other group, 42% of Jews say that there are a lot of discrimination against Jews in the U.S., and 81% perceive anti-Semitism as problematic in the U.S. today. Our results indicated some similar ideas as well, even though the 12 interviews encompassed a wide range of experiences. From professors to religious leaders to college students, certain themes became prominent throughout the interviews, including the smallness of the Jewish community, the prominence of secular Judaism, and the dominance of Christianity, cautiousness in sharing Jewish identity, and finally Jewish stereotypes and meeting their first Jew. Looking at our first idea, specifically referring to the small Jewish community, while the majority of community members in Muncie do not practice a religion, 26.4% identify as Christian. Jews are considered part of the other religions, constituting less than 2% of the population. First organized in 1885, the Temple Bethel community has always dealt with the reality of being a small community. Interviewees commented about the small Jewish representation and the small or shrinking Jewish community in Muncie, with one man saying that I feel that we are disappearing here, and I just wish that we had more than 20 to 25 families. This is manifested as a lack of resources specifically related to kosher food, but the minority identity and sometimes the difficulty to be observant publicly has created a strong and significant stability, as well as an obligation of those present in the community to contribute to the Temple Bethel resources and community services. The second one refers to the prominence of secular Judaism. Identity can vary because many people consider themselves Jewish in name only, being Jewish therefore as a result of only having family background, which was prominent throughout the interviews. When asked about her Jewish identity, one woman said that's kind of what's cool about Judaism, is that you can never practice a single custom, never keep kosher or anything like that with being Jewish, but you can still be considered as Jewish as anyone else. And another man remarked that you don't necessarily have to follow the religious beliefs, but you are still Jewish because of your birth. This secular practice extends to the temple and can exist because there is a comparatively decreased religiosity among Jews raised in the Midwest by interfaith parents, but the incidence of interfaith parenthood is on the rise. Many of the people that I interviewed said that they had two parents, one that was Jewish and one that was usually non-Jewish. The non-Jewish parent was usually Christian but had converted to Judaism later in life, usually after marriage. The third important topic that we found was the prominence of Christianity. Identity is manifested publicly and privately, but my study focused on informants' perception of their Jewish identity in public spaces in Muncie, in a space largely dominated by Christian iconography. Many informants notedly remarked about the dominance of Jewish decorations absent from Muncie spaces, as one woman commented about the dominance of Christmas. It's all Christmas lights, wreaths, and trees and presents. They're playing holiday music on the speakers in the buses. No menorah, not a single menorah. Observance in the form of having Jewish friends and being attached to Jewish symbols, which are used throughout ritual, is difficult because Muncie lacks these symbols and often struggles not just with the dominance of Christianity, but also with the push for Christian religion. We see this with the dominance of Christian-oriented groups at Ball State, including Cru and Awaken, as well as people pushing evangelization with the distribution frequently of Bibles on campus, and an example that I'll note just a little bit later. The fourth point continues as well with the cautiousness of sharing Jewish identity. Anti-Semitic incidents can range from facial expressions to community demonstrations and hate propaganda to severe crimes. Multiple informants mentioned that they felt their physical safety was being threatened when they attended Temple Bethel. While informants were not giving up their religion, they are less likely to talk about their religion or to wear symbols of Judaism in public spaces, related to specifically wearing Star of David jewelry and kippahs in public spaces, especially considering what had happened this past December. For parents especially, many face the conflict of instilling a pride of their religion in their children, while also teaching them to be careful of hateful groups, and this can extend through public expressions of Jewish religion. Finally, we go to one of the most interesting topics and themes that we found, with Jewish stereotypes. Many informants reveal that when people find out that they are Jewish, they admit that they have never met a Jewish person before. This ignorance of Jews has created misunderstandings about what Judaism is and has perpetuated stereotypes about Jews. One woman noted that they don't know a lot of Jewish people. It's very, very common to me when people find out that I am Jewish, they have never met a Jewish person before. While she explained that she sees her identity as unique, but this lack of representation and being their first Jew can be tiring. Always being placed in the minority can be tiring. Many are surprising that there are individuals that are not Christian in the Muncie community, and one interviewee admitted that a close family friend was confused even about what Judaism was. This confusion and misunderstanding can lead to anti-Semitism, more frequently with Jewish jokes, but also with the perpetuation of very serious crimes, and confusion about how to support and celebrate Jewish identity in Muncie. In order to conclude this presentation, I'd just like to touch a little bit on the conclusions that we came to through the study. What you're seeing at the top of your screen right now is an example of a poster that was put up throughout Ball State's campus on the eve of Rosh Hashanah, Sunday, September 29th, 2019, last semester. An individual that I had interviewed for this study, a young woman, had gone to the police after taking a picture of this poster, but the police was confused about what to do and about the harmfulness of the situation, confused that it was put out during the time of the high holidays and what that even meant for people that were more knowledgeable about the very unfortunate situations of anti-Semitism happening. Despite this, it's important to emphasize that Muncie has a strong but small Jewish identity. The small but integral part of economic and cultural landscape of Muncie that is played by the Jewish community should be celebrated. Ignorance can perpetuate feelings of isolation, jokes, and anti-Semitism, but it's important that education and awareness about Jewishness and Judaism and the unique struggles that these individuals encounter in small-town life can help promote acceptance as well as awareness of how to celebrate this unique identity, but also how to let them know that they are a welcome and important presence in the Muncie community. Thank you.